Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Sky 6316, 8.8 for 6,000.
Got 6316, North Approach, so maintain 3,000, I'm 1 for the right.
3,000, Sky 6316.
Redwood 811.
Good for you to have along this trip on, yes, and I can speak, yes, on this Saturday, May 13th. I'm here with James, who's about to go make his tea that he needs, and Eileen Meyer. But before we interview Eileen Meyer about the book Koyopa, Contact Within, I've got some announcements to make. Yes, you're awake. We are coming to you live from the magical mystery cabin, Uncle Jimbo's cabin, which shares quantum space with the Pacific Northwest and Desert Southwest, every weekend here on spacedoutradio.com and Spaced Out Weekend. Now, if you are listening to us on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia, we love you. We're so glad you're listening to us. If you're listening on Spreaker, the same, United Public Radio Network, how could we forget you? Renegade Talk Radio and the High Plains Talk Radio Network, you guys are all freaking awesome. Thank you for listening. Anybody else who's listening on YouTube, anywhere else you're listening, you're awesome too. We also think our guitar god, Ron Bubblefoot is fantastically awesome. He was in Guns N' Roses, and, you know, Dave loves him, and if Dave loves him, he's okay. He's now in Art of Anarchy. He creates the music that makes Spaced Out Radio Weekend rock. He is our official spacedoutradio.com music. Check him out, because he is really awesome, and he's very cool, and we love him too. There's a lot of people we love. We love people who look for us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. We love people who like our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. I really love people who go to Cosmis Passport with Elizabeth Anglin on Facebook and like that, because, you know, I'm there, and that means you like me. So that's great. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can listen to all of our shows after they air on the YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn, download our shows from iTunes. We're also on Radio Guide FM, TalkStream Live, and on Stitcher. And, of course, our website, which we would really love for you to go to and click on some stuff, is spacedoutradio.com. And if you go to patreon.com, we share the love with some really cool offers for you, our beloved listeners. We just don't like you. We love you. And I really want you to know that. Please make sure you check out how much we do by going to spacedoutradio.com. If you want to take part in the show, you'll have to sign in to one of our chat rooms on Spreaker or in the chat room on Facebook on the SOR Space Travelers Club, because when you go there, you're really going to be loved. Some of the nicest chat rooms you'll find anywhere. If you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, for just $5 a month of love, you can become an SOR Space Traveler, and we offer some decent swag, and it's our opportunity to give some love back to you. We have a new news section called The Encounter that deals with everything paranormal, courtesy of our editors, Eric Markham and Everett Thiemer. And you can check out Dave Scott's latest blog there as well. And if you have had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our researcher, Mike Schmidt, is ready to find out what's going on with you and keep it private, because that's how we roll here on spacedoutradio.com. We keep it private unless you want to make it public, in which case you can come on the air. All right. I am so happy to welcome in to our sleepy studio today. We should be the dwarves, like sleepy and sneezy and something else and can't talky, because we all got on tonight and we all said, wow, I'm sleepy. Wow, I'm sleepy too. So we have three dwarves, sleepy, and sleepy here, James, Eileen, and Elizabeth. But I'm happy to welcome in Eileen. And I'm so happy to talk about Koyopa because it is about things that I think about all the time and I don't get to talk to people about. It's about what is it like to be an experiencer? What is it like to have expanded consciousness? What is it like to have peak experiences? What is it like to be a sacred truth teller as much as you can be? It's about all of that good stuff. And who are those light praying mantis beings? All of those good things are in there. And it's very honest. This is one of the most honest pieces of nonfiction, because even nonfiction can be fictional. We all have mythologies of our lives. This is really honest. There's not a lot of myth telling. There's a lot of honesty in this book. So, Eileen, thank you for coming on the show again. Thank you for sharing your wonderful story in Koyopa, Contact Within. It's so great to hang out with another experiencer, even sleepy. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I'm happy to be here. We're going to keep each other awake, even though it's past our bedtimes. Yeah. It's a pleasure to speak with another experiencer. I feel the same way. I know that you are as well, and you wrote a book as well. So that's one of my most favorite things to do is to talk with another experiencer. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, I found out when I was writing my book that I did hit this problem of personal mythologies. I kept finding, because I would ask my dad questions about why things were a certain way, and I had ideas about, why he did what he did, or, what he was thinking, what made that happen. And I had created throughout my life this personal mythology of why my dad became addicted to anti-anxiety medicines. And I thought, well, it had to be because of the aliens. And we had physical experiences, like we physically went missing. I physically went missing as a kid. And so that was and I had a lot of anxiety and fear about the flying white van that would fly over my house and I'd get beamed up on light. Mm-hmm. And so my mythology, I found out that he had been addicted to anti-anxiety meds when I was 16. I found this out from him. And when he got off, it changed his personality significantly. But after I learned about the alien abduction stuff, I went, oh, well, of course he was. I was angry. But it was a mythology. He had a different reason, or it might have played into it, but his reason was dealing with my mother, who was difficult. And so, and there were other mythologies that I found along the way that it was like, wait a minute, is that really true? Is that really real? And sometimes I let them stand in my book as the myth that they were, because I'm going to come back in the next book and blow the pieces out of them. And other times I didn't. But that's the part of writing. It's like you're talking about telling the truth and John Mack used to say this, that we experiences are sacred truth tellers. I love that. And I love John Mack. I miss him so. Yeah. And that was so wonderful. And it's kind of, daunting when you're 24 and, he gets up and says, experiencers are sacred truth tellers, and you're standing there going, oh crap, now I got to tell the truth. Right. I couldn't figure out another way to do it. I mean, I would write off and on for years. I would start the book and abandon it, because I didn't know, and this isn't only in writing a book, it's in also trying to explain it. Just trying to explain it in words reduces it to something that sounds either too extremely new agey, or
just gibberish at times. So, and it's really important for me for people to know what this felt like as a human being. What was this like to actually have these? I had the terrifying, anxiety-ridden experiences as well. And that's why I'm so fascinated with the integration of it in the evolution of consciousness, because I believe that that's what this is about, ultimately, is to kind of jumpstart us into remembering more of what we're connected to.
Right. Yeah, the ego protects us by telling us we're separate and we have to protect ourselves. But it is an ego death when you have this happen, because you can't protect yourself.
No.
And then you have this whole other thing. I mean, the idea, can your parents protect you? Can your idea of God, the big dude on the throne, protect you? And in all of these things that the ego might fall back on as your protection, way, it can't keep you separate and protected. You must join in. In this case, it's like you will, you must, you will, you are. And
you're going to deal with it. Yeah. In that moment, and it's a very present moment experience, and it's you're absolutely right, Elizabeth. It's something that you cannot run from or avoid. It is happening.
And I as an experiencer, I'm like, I'll hear people say, "Oh, it was fine, it was loving, it was wonderful," and I'm like, "When did you scream?" "Oh, I never felt anything wrong," and I'm like, "Well, who gave you the happy train?"
Yeah, well, and I have those stories much later, because I'm a lifetime experiencer. Okay. When I was a child, it was more fun and natural. When I was very young, it wasn't frightening. Then in the teenage years, it was terrifying again. And then, a pivotal moment that I wrote about in the book of, them telepathically letting me know that I have a choice as to how I want to experience it. Do you know that you have a choice? No, I didn't know I had a choice. And so I chose love for the interaction, and that's when everything changed. It isn't that I never felt fear again. It's just that it never was so terrifying that that I blacked out. I was able to stay conscious through the interactions at a certain point. But that's what you just described. That's how I feel about people who talk about Kundalini experiences and Koyopa, and the name of the book, Koyopa, Contact Within. That's the Mayan word for Kundalini. And I'm using that specifically because of my background with the Mayan science and experience with that, and also because it's a new word that doesn't have the connotations of Kundalini. When I hear people say, "Oh, I had a Kundalini experience, it was great," I'm like, what?
Yeah.
No. Maybe you felt a little flutter, but if it's full-on Kundalini, you are going to be flattened out and transformed completely in your consciousness, just as the non-human intelligence interactions occur. They are so similar. It's crazy. It just kind of accelerates your consciousness and forces you to activate more, so that you can begin to integrate. And I guess it's, I wish I was a scientist, Elizabeth. I wish I had those terms, or I wish that a scientist, a quantum physicist would contact me and talk about this with me, because I don't have the terms. I just have the experience. And what I've noticed in this field is that there isn't the respect and the honoring and the welcoming of the experiencers to talk about what actually happens. And that I find that really sad and disappointing. I want to know from other experiencers. I want to know how they processed all of this and what they learned from it. And most importantly, how are you changed by it? How are you different? Just like somebody who has a near-death experience. How are you different? How are you changed by that?
What is important now versus what was important before? And the hardest thing I have, because I work with a lot of non-experiencers, is as an experiencer, what's true for me is I have a sense of my ensoulment, or my spirit within my body, that is pretty much unshakable. It's I'm not wishy-washing around through life. I know what I'm here for. I know that I'm here. I physically feel my spiritual presence in my body. I know that I'm here. I know that I'm doing something. I know that I don't know all of what that's going to entail, but and it's something beyond grounding. Like people will say, "Oh, you're not grounded if you don't feel this way."
Oh, it's opposite of that.
Yeah, it's expanded. I'm myself, but I can be, sitting with a Syrian council if I want to be. I can be on the moon if I want to be. I can go fly with birds if I want to go fly with birds. But it's not, unfortunately, that means sometimes I don't wash the dishes. But, who cares?
I'm not going to fault you for that, Elizabeth.
But, and somebody would say, well, if you were grounded, you'd wash the dishes. It's like, who cares? Who cares if I wash?
But, you have a life, you have a business, you have, you're handling multi-level tasking all the time. I know that I am. I know that I do a lot of different things, and I have a lot of different projects going on. If I wasn't grounded, I couldn't do all of those things. And when I talk to experiencers, I particularly like to ask them about, how does this change your everyday life? Who are you in your everyday life? Do you pretend that you're not an experiencer? Do you, or are you just discerning about who you share these things with? Which I'm the latter. I'm just very discerning. You can almost just tune into somebody and decide how much you can share. Is that true for you?
Yeah, it is now. I regret, there are times when you're not being fully demonstrable or fully demonstrated or fully expressed, to me is a bit like being ill. And so when I was very much in the closet, or felt I needed to be in my mid to late 20s and my early 30s, I feel a lot of regret for that time period, because I was not sharing much of anything with anyone. And it when I look back on it, it's painful, because I went through years of work with Dr. Mack before that period, and there was nobody around who had gone through similar, or there weren't very many people around. And I even had a support group, and I'm still saying there weren't very many people around. Now there are more people in the general population that I meet than there were in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And so, but I regret that time period. Like, I wish I could have just popped out of there and said, yeah, this is what I am. Get over it. You know?
Yeah, that takes time. That took me decades.
Yeah.
You know, and just to write the book. And I'm so happy that I wrote it. It's done. Maybe some point I'll write another book. But it was the hardest thing I've ever done and the most freeing thing I've ever done. So I don't know if you feel that way too.
Oh, yeah. Freeing is it. It's like, you know, and I had this sort of victim mentality of you can't possibly understand me. Not a narcissistic you can't understand me, but a real you can't possibly understand me. And then I looked at the book and it's like anybody who reads this, a kid is going to understand this because I wrote about experiences in childhood and I wrote like a normal person, which I am. And I had people's kids grabbing it and reading it, and they loved it because they understood it. And that's what I really wanted. It's like when you put it out there in trust that people will understand it if they see the whole story, it's like, oh, God, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, so you write some really cool stuff in your book, which I'm going to go to because I'm a host and I'm supposed to all smart stuff and like I know what you're talking about. At the beginning, hopefully I can find my notes here. You know, you're very honest about that you did have a lot of trauma in your early life, and you're very honest about making the decision to be real. But what were some of the things that you did? Because you had trauma that's not experienced trauma. You had life trauma. And what were some of the things that you did for that?
Well, the trauma really began more in the early teen years. And it was a wide variety of trauma events. And when you ask me what was it I did, do you mean how did I heal that, or
how did you heal it? Because I think there are experiencers who, because they, you know, you may just be listening to this show for the first time and not realize there are other experiencers out there supporting each other and trying different modalities. We experiencers, we go modality shopping. And
we do. Mm-hmm.
And so
I write about it in the book, that the healing that wounding that happened from preteen all the way through to my 20s, that eventually, synchronistically, I landed in brain spotting therapy. And that's kind of like a derivative of EMDR. I see it that way. Maybe a professional psychotherapist wouldn't see it that way, but they kind of go hand in hand, or they're similar. Let's just put it that way. And it was a release of the trauma that was just shocking to me, that it was so simple and so effective. And I write about it because what I noticed was once that was released, the trauma, the non-experiencer type trauma, that has to do with, everything from bullying in the teenage years to, sexual assault, to molestation, to attempted rapes, and to domestic abuse. That stuff was released rather rapidly through brain spotting. So that's one that I highly recommend. And I'm very, very grateful to have discovered that trauma therapy. What it did in the end for me was I could actually physically feel the opening in me to allow more of this love, vibrational presence, and a greater understanding of these connections with non-human intelligence. It was like, okay, these events were still happening as an experiencer, but it all just came together for me in my understanding of how blocked most of us are. Just simply, you don't have to have a violent experience or, be a war veteran. Of course, all these modalities help all of these people. But just simply being human on this planet, especially at this time, is very traumatizing. So I recommend the trauma therapies to anybody who wants to connect with more of themselves. I think that what I learned was that the most important thing is to learn how to reconnect with yourself with a capital S, to know who you are vibrationally, so that you can feel, begin to piece yourself back together again. We've been living in this very, very, very small and limited reality. And once you have these experiences, it's like, oh, geez, how did I ever live like that? And how do other people live like this? You can't go back once you're expanded. And once you know this love directly that you're connected to. So the trauma therapies release what's blocking you to your source, to your creator, to the universe, because it's feelings that connect us directly. Clean, healthy feelings connect us directly to our source. So isn't it interesting that we're conditioned to not feel and to make fun of people who feel and who live their lives through feeling and intuition? I'm just amazed by that, at the effectiveness of that programming to prevent us from making these connections. We don't need any. We can be inspired by spiritual leaders and our minister or a rabbi. These people can inspire us, but we don't need the go-between. We can go direct to this source. We just need to unblock all of the stagnant and, trauma, that stagnant feelings and the trauma that we carry in our physicality. This is what I learned just through my own life, and I've heard other people say this now too, that they've discovered this. So it's validating. It's important to hear that, the most amazing thing, I'm sure you can agree with this, Elizabeth, is just to hear other people talk about these things and say, yes, that happened to me too, and I understand what you're saying, and here's how I dealt with it, and here's what I felt after I healed all the wounds, and especially the releasing the stagnant feelings. So I was given tools from this non-human intelligence on how to do this myself, and I share it in the book. And it's not, Elizabeth, it's not something that very many people are interested in. It's not a popular tool because
if you didn't have your drama, what would you talk about with your friends? What
would your identity be? I know.
Yeah, who would you be without the drama?
Right, and that's the key right there. Is we've developed these identities, this whole way of life, this whole way of being. We've bought into that this is real, and all that other stuff, that woo-woo stuff people talk about, that's not real and that's crazy. And what that does is it just becomes one distraction after another of meeting the self or even meeting your creator. Because if you do that, you're damn right everything's going to change. Anything that's not aligned with who you truly are, it's going to get transformed. So I think people know that deep in their core, and that's why it's blocked instantly. So, it's okay. It's okay. I don't need to have, create a big business and machine around these tools that I was given. That's not the point. It's that I wanted to pass it on to others in case they were inspired to apply them, to practice them, so that they could begin to discover the rest of themselves.
So you were telling me before we got on air that, and we're going to do a whole other show about this, but one of the tools is speaking the truth or honesty work. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do this. What I want everybody to know, we're doing this show 2 weeks before we're going to do an honesty call-in show. And it's powerful work. Do you feel like you want to try it on me right now, or do you want to wait or just explain it so that people know that there will be a call-in show? If you're intrigued by this, please stay tuned for 2 weeks from now when we're going to have the call-in show. And we now have Cosmic Passports on the scroll bar on spacedoutradio.com. So it'll be up during the week, and you can see, Eileen Meyer is back, and we're going to do call-in honesty work. But tell us about that so people know what they're looking for and what they can look forward to.
Okay, sure. And I want to say, too, before I forget it, if people want to sign in 2 weeks from now anonymously, that's perfectly okay, because it's very, very scary for people to tell their truth, especially on a public platform. But there's so much power in honesty, and there's so much potential healing that can take place when we speak our feelings honestly. Let me just explain how it occurred for me. It was a contact experiences. They just kind of expanded into, drop-in vibrational visits, like just me moving about my life. I would feel the energy, and it would come in. And people use the word telepathy. I always kind of flinch a bit at the telepathy word. At some point, I found somebody was using the word telempathy, and I like that better because it's an empathic, feeling-oriented way of communion. I use the word communion as well. It's not just somebody suddenly talking in your head. It's a feeling, knowing. If you're this is one of the benefits of releasing all the trauma and the stagnant feelings, because then you're more open to resonate with the vibrational contact. So what happened was I was asked, I was in my meditative state, and I was asked, it surfaced within me, what are you feeling? And that was it. And I go through it in the book, exactly what happened. And it's like, I'm feeling fine. It just kind of that real superficial level.
Yeah.
I'm fine with a smile. Everything's good. And then it was just silent, nothing.
Yeah.
And then what are you feeling? And so then I got, the message, or I caught on to the, okay, I get that I'm supposed to really say what I'm feeling. And so then it just took me through layer after layer after layer until, in this particular session, I, hit kind of a pay dirt moment when I released and I let through. Now, mind you, I have gone to energetic healing school. I've done so much emotional processing. It isn't even funny. So this wasn't new to me. But of course, this way of doing it was very new. So it was basically, it's a meditation, but it's a feeling meditation. So that you're not, you know how we're always told to be focused on our thoughts, or like, oh, there was a thought. Well, yes, there's that too. But what about the feeling part? What if you're feeling something?
Yeah, truth is more than just an action. Like, you know, did you do this? Did you not do that? Well, you can say, yeah, I did that. But truth is it's multi-dimensional, because there are feelings involved with it. It's way more complicated than did you tell the truth? Well, the truth of your soul, you know, you could be on the surface telling the truth just fine, but, you know,
correct.
The depth of your soul, you're lying your freaking butt off.
Yeah, exactly. And so many people I find don't know what they really feel, because this isn't a judgment. It's just, this is the reality that we've been living in. We're very conditioned and very programmed to eliminate entire chunks of our consciousness in order to be here and to perform, our job and all of the different roles that we have. I'm not saying those roles and jobs aren't fun or interesting. I'm just saying there's so much more to us. And the reason why they took me through this conscious feeling exercise or meditation was they wanted me to feel truth in its purest form. So the more that I told the truth, that I spoke honestly what I was feeling, and mind you, it's not what I'm thinking, it's what I'm feeling, the more that I felt the resonance, the energy increase and increase and increase to where I'm in full contact, because I'm present, and there's nothing blocking this communion with more, not only more with other intelligence, non-human intelligence, but with myself. And so many times it feels like one and the same to me, or a group kind of consciousness that we're all connected to. So it's for 2 weeks from now, this exercise, I've never actually practiced it or, guided someone through it. I've wanted to. But it's so incredibly personal that it's almost like a sacred space has to be created in order to allow it to unfold. And I would be the facilitator. But what we can do in 2 weeks, and I've been thinking about this a lot, Elizabeth, because I don't know what the best approach to it is, and if I don't know if we're going to have anyone interested to tell you the truth, because it's hard. It takes a lot of courage to do it. But I can guarantee that if one commits themselves to it, they will unravel to the point where they begin to feel their own vibration, and then begin to go, oh, this is who I am. Oh, it's like a welcome home of more of your energy, more of your vital energy. So what we can do is, what I do in sessions is I ask the client to just begin to speak what you're feeling right now. And it can be in context of what the emotional issue is at the time, what the crisis is. It doesn't really matter. That can enter in at any point. But the point is to just start speaking honestly what you're feeling right now in this moment. that's the point where we can begin to unravel more, and I can begin to tune in and hear the soul messages for that individual, so that I can begin to coach or guide them into the truth of who they are. So we could apply that in 2 weeks, and see if we have anybody who's willing to be a guinea pig, and they can be anonymous. But that's really, it's a real simple process. It's not complicated. It just takes presence and a real need. It can't just be, "Ooh, this is fun, let's do this." It's if a real need is there, it'll be more rewarding for both the person that's showing up for it, as well as the listener.
Right. And, we've had people come on and do emotion code work on air, which is, it's kind of private because we're talking about emotions, and they got a lot of value out of that. Most people were anonymous. I just want to say that this is so in line with my later experiences that I'm writing about in the third book, because I'm writing about working with extraterrestrial craft. And I can tell you there's one thing that they care about if you're hooked up to them. It's how honest are you? Mm-hmm. And they will show you when you're lying. They'll say, "How do you feel about so and so?" And you'll think at them, "Well, I feel such and such about so and so," and then they'll go, "Really?" And then they'll turn the mirror around and blast you with what you're really feeling about so and so. And it's like,
yeah, exactly. And it's why, and people seem so confused as to why they're not landing and saying hello. It's because we're just not there yet with our consciousness. We have to rise to meet them, and honesty and innocence is the beginning of that.
Right, being able to be honest in ourselves in any given moment, which is, it's incredible. It's a bit traumatizing to have your honest truth shown it to you, when you were planning on having a normal covered up with the bushel basket day.
Yes.
And the aliens will just be like, "Oh, no, it's not a normal day. We're going to show you your truth today." Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Elizabeth. That's the key to all of my contact experiences. It's so easy to just project onto, make it an us and them thing and say, "Oh, they're bad because I was terrified." Well, you're also feeling your own fear that you didn't know you carried within you. And that gets projected onto the bad ETs. I'm not saying that people don't have very negative experiences. I understand that occurs, and I'm not trying to look the other way on that. But you can take control of the situation by knowing who you are, owning who you are, and standing in that as wholly as possible. Then that negativity cannot occur. So it's an effort. It's a big step, but to be able to release the attachment to being a victim is an important first step with these kinds of interactions, I feel.
I've had a hard time telling, I renegotiated my situation with aliens when, almost how long? When I was in my early 30s, very early 30s. And when you're feeling a victim, it's a hamster wheel of victimhood. You just keep going around and around and around. I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something flipped the switch where I absolutely knew I wasn't a victim. And when I went from that place of absolutely knowing it was an agreement, and that I could renegotiate the agreement, and that I could do what I wanted within the agreement. And for me, what it was, being of service and being of compassion to both human beings and aliens when it was necessary, and being able to be conscious of experiences rather than being made unconscious against my will.
Excellent. I love it. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so, and there was a little bit of dishonesty there, because a lot of times I still like to be a little unconscious so I can get up in the morning and have a normal day.
Right.
And so, I've done stupid things like talk to my son who lives with the aliens and, connect with him and say, hey, I haven't seen you for a while. He's like, I saw you 2 hours ago.
So you did you have a hybrid baby?
I have two children that I know about that have two human fathers, but but they're hybrid in the sense the first one was completely created out of what the aliens wanted. It was a setup. When I was quite young, when I was 18, and the father was actually younger than me. Mm-hmm. I've since met him and had this conversation with him about it. He knew who he was, and because I wrote the book, he approached me, and that was him. I thought he was someone else because I knew somebody who looked like him, but no, he knew who he was. But she, when you see her, she has that kind of sheen on her skin, and she's, and I think she's also grown up in lower gravity, so she doesn't have the bone density, but the sheen on her skin is really interesting. She's kind of sparkly. So, and then I have a son who was going to have, the father was very non-committal, and the son was going to have severe issues, developmental issues with achondroplasia, which would lead to dwarfism and hydrocephalus. And he started showing signs of that very early term in the pregnancy, and they gave us a choice whether we wanted him to go live with them and get taken care of and have all the medical care that he needed, or whether I was going to try to do a live birth, and he was going to have hydrocephalus at the time. So it could have just been a mess, for me and for him all the way around. Mm-hmm. And it was chosen that he would stay with them. And sometimes we have a conversation back and forth. Sometimes he'd like to come here, but it's like, well, how do we get you an ID? Who are you? And, what happens when you're really thinking hard at someone? Break, and they don't do it.
Yeah, it's an area that I had the experiences, and I haven't had the reconnection. It was so extraordinarily lucid and real, giving birth,
yes.
and greeting her and experiencing just, as a mother, Happy Mother's Day, as a mother, of a human birth here, of course, you experience that expansion and joy when you give birth and that connection with the child. It's amazing. It's the most amazing experience I've ever had, both in 3D and in a lucid interdimensional space, where that connection was just completely wordless, completely indescribable. Now, I surrendered the baby. I knew that was the protocol. And anything I've ever read, Elizabeth, there's so many conflicting views on this phenomenon. And nothing.
I hang out with rebels, so that's the situation with me. Is that I have, within the hierarchy of the aliens, I hang out with somebody and am mentored by somebody who's quite a rebel. So, I know a lot of people who give up their children and never see them. I think I've given up children I've never seen again. But the ones who are most human, I see. And that's because I've had somebody going to bat for me, saying, no, you can't just expect somebody who is mainly, has a great deal of humanity to fit in with this culture and all of a sudden just behave like an alien. What you're doing is you're pruning the rose bush too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's a real foggy area for me, though, because I haven't read anything online or found another story that was similar to mine. It always kind of goes into a negative place in the stuff that I read, and I just shut it off because I didn't have a negative experience. And it was quite beautiful. And I don't completely understand. I don't know all the storylines and the drama around it. I like to keep it sweet. And I trust. I trusted those beings, those females that were hanging around the perimeter, with either veils on or fuzzed out faces, that this was important. It was necessary, and it's not something I think this is the first time, other than in the book, I've ever talked about it out loud.
Yeah, we experiencer women, we need to have our own little powwow, and because it's I had a lot of mama bear in me, so when I would have children taken, I would mama bear the crap out of a bunch of little aliens, while they were doing it. And I actually know there are other kids, but it's sort of like, I do trust that they are doing what they came to be embodied to do, that their agreements with the aliens, just like my agreements with the aliens, are theirs, and they hold priority to what my mama bear must protect you at all costs self.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. I can definitely relate to that. James just sent a question.
And let's answer it quickly. We've got about a minute. Does she feel that it's more logic or heart-based feelings, intuition, etc.? Is her knowledge based on inner knowing or through external guides?
Okay. Thank you for the question. It's that's an easy question. It's heart-based feelings. And a kind of intuition to me and heart-based feelings are kind of the same thing. And it is through inner knowing. I connect through inner knowing. I don't perceive anything as external in this process. I blend with other perspectives, and I can bring through or translate, and I do. I bring through translated messages, but it is me just as well. I know it sounds weird, but it's my consciousness, and it's a blend.
Very good. Good answer. So, Eileen, if people want to work with you and do some honesty work, how do they find you? EileenMeyer.com, EileenMeyer.com. And also, that's the best way to find me for the spiritual work. And your book, Koyopa, Contact Within, I haven't read all of it yet, but I have to tell you, it's well written. It's a good read. It's very honest. It's on Amazon. Is it anyplace else?
It's just on Amazon right now in Kindle and print. And I also want to say that I'm going to be speaking in October at the International Symposium of Quantum Consciousness and Healing in Las Vegas. So I'm very excited about that. And if people want information on that, it's on the website that I just gave and also on the Facebook page, Facebook.com/Koyopa Contact.
Great. Thank you, Eileen. Yeah, thank you so much. We are out for tonight. James is going to be taking on the rest of the show. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I enjoyed it.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, news director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
The third Monday of every month, Spaced Out Radio is going to bring you a different look at everything paranormal. Welcome to The Reporters. Jim Mallard, Vanessa Hogel, Denise Garcia, and Christina George join me, Dave Scott, for a look at the weird and strange from the other side of the microphone. We'll break down ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, and the people investigating them. The paranormal media has never been heard like this. Come listen to The Reporters.
For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that we'll leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
It's time to go live on Spaced Out Weekend.
13, please. Oh, hi, Kevin. Oh, is that the time? Kevin, my friend, don't you find that watch just a little bit loud? Well, I certainly hope our buddy Bumblefoot is playing when we get there. Oh, you stinky big bundle of hair. I said Bumblefoot, not Bigfoot. Oh, it's going to be a long night.
It's time to head to the 13th floor of the old log cabin for Spaced Out Weekend with James Tyson. You can tweet James at James Tyson SOR. You can find him on Instagram, Spaced Out Weekend, as well as on Facebook. On YouTube, our channel is Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can check out our website, spacedoutradio.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
And now, perched high in his captain's chair, way above the clouds, here's James Tyson.
Good evening and welcome everybody to Spaced Out Weekend. I know you've heard my voice since Wednesday because I've been in for Dave, and you're stuck with me again tonight. I am your host, James Tyson, and I am broadcasting to you from my little log cabin on the 13th floor of the Spaced Out Radio Network here in those paranormal portals of the Pacific Northwest, Cascadia, where it's always wet and damp and cold and miserable. And that's the way our summer is going to be. If you live in a rainforest, that's what you get stuck with. And I want to take some time to say hi to everybody listening to us down in the land of the Walking Dead, Noonan, Georgia, at WQEE 99 Rock the Key. And I want to thank you who are listening to us and in the chat room at spacedoutradio.com, on our Facebook chat room, SOR Space Travelers, on Spreaker, on the United Public Radio Network out of New Orleans, Renegade Talk Radio, and High Plains Talk Radio Network. And let's not forget, those that are listening to us around the world in iTunes, Radio Guide FM, TalkStream Live, and on Stitcher. And again, look around. See what device you are listening to me on. And I want to thank the creator of that device. If you are bouncing around spacedoutradio.com, go and fill out a SOR Sightlines report if you've had an experience and you want it investigated. Our researcher, Mike Smith, is ready to find out what's going on. And I tell you, I had a call today through Canadian Paranormal from a fellow on the other side of Canada, and actually had a voodoo curse. And Skeeter Wellhouse is going to be dealing with that on Monday. And what a voodoo curse these voodoo guys did really just opened a door to a bunch of elementals that are driving him, he and his father, crazy by shaking the bed and running around. And the kid's quite sensitive, so he can see these things. And it's just, they've paid a lot of money to really bad paranormal people who came in and smudged it and left and just wound up these things. So we're going to be taking care of that. But again, these are the types of things, if you've had experience, and well, if you get something like that, phone Forest Moon Paranormal, Google them, Forest Moon Paranormal, look up Eric Cooper and the boys, and they'll go in and they'll do a hard clean. They'll get in there and clean those things up pretty hard. Skeeter does it a bit softer, so she's going to come and help us with that. But again, if you got an experience, SOR Sightlines report. And it's a lot of people are having experiences. Gosh darn it! Tonight, and we've watched Elizabeth and Eileen Meyer discuss some alien babies and stuff, but we're going to slow it down a bit, just a bit, and get us into basically some good ghost stories. Tonight we have Steve Stockton and Sysco Murdoch, and we're going to be discussing ghosts and what is this new wannabe ghost hunter culture doing, and all those crazy things that we're trying on Spaced Out Radio to try to calm down this ghost hunter, what Dave calls it, Pokemon Ghost, where you get everybody out stomping through graveyards trying to hear something. Now, we have Steve, and Steve is great. He's an author. He is a very deep well of great stories. Sysco calls him a stellar teller and shares a similar paranormal roadmap through life. Among Steve's books are Strange Things in the Woods and My Strange Life. He is a veteran outdoorsman, author, and has been investigating the unexplained for over 35 years. Originally from the mountains of East Tennessee, Steve has traveled all over the country, many parts of the world, and now makes his home in Portland, Oregon, near the wilds of Bigfoot country in the Pacific Northwest. His influences are his gypsy witch grandmother, who told him legends and stories as a small child, as well as authors such as Frank Edwards, John Keel, Charles Fort, Lauren Coleman, Ivan Sandersons, and Colin Wilson. His published books include Strange Things in the Woods and More Strange Things in the Woods, as well as My Strange World, where he talks about his own experiences dating back to childhood. Now, Sysco isn't a cowboy, but who knows? Sysco has been searching for pieces to the paranormal puzzle since her first encounter with an angry ghost as a child. That search was set in full motion upon finding a book by Hans Holzer and his desire to help the family and the tormented entity itself. Her open-minded, heartfelt search continues after 45 years, believing all wisdom is not found in one place. She's been collecting theories and information from a Native American background and elders from many spiritual paths, helping in an open-minded, heartfelt search for ways to help the ghosts that find her. Leading with first is do no harm, and trying to remember the ghosts are people too, with all the different personalities that come with being a human. Favorite authors in her life include Hans Holzer, David Weatherby, Barry Strom, Patrick Burke, Steve Stockton, I've heard of that guy, Steve Young, Echo Bondi, and she is a wire sculptor and owns her own business and is currently writing a book with Steve. Well, we've got them here, and before we lose Steve to sinus infections and that damp Cascadian weather, we got to welcome you all to Spaced Out Weekend. Hello, Sysco. Hello, Steve.
Hello.
Good to be here. Thank you for having us on.
Oh, Steve, it sounds like it's just good to be alive at this point. It's
just happy to
hit your mic.
A jug of moonshine and 3 neocitrons, you'll be fine.
Yeah, that would work.
Hit your mic, Steve. You don't sound good, honey. How is everybody out there? Before I ever get started, I just want to say a shout out to everybody in the chat room over at Spreaker. They were very kind and they kept me awake. I've been tramping around all day at the Para-Unity convention out there in New Jersey, and it was wonderful to meet a lot of people, and the chat room was very kind and told me jokes and keep me awake so I could be here for you. So thanks to everybody there.
Excellent. And where are you usually? Where do you usually hang your hat?
Myself?
Yeah.
I am in New Jersey.
You are in New Jersey. Okay.
I am in New Jersey. Yes. So it's the wee hours here. So who knows? Anything can happen. We're getting right up into the witching hour now.
Perfect. Right. Yeah. Perfect. Oh, come on. They're around Go ahead.
No, I was going to say. Just to help out here a little bit, Steve and I actually just met each other a little over a year ago. We had done a radio show, and
I had read some of his books, and another host thought that maybe the two of us kind of had like a couple parallel experiences. So we got together and we started talking, and I think that night we broke Skype. We talked for like 4 hours straight. Just everything I said, he had a backup to it or reminded him of something.
Well, even prior to that, we had called to get kind of acquainted with one another and ended up talking for like 5 or 6 hours to that point. So it's just never lost for words.
Well, you know it's a good connection when that happens.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's just really nice because if you think about it, if you're in our age group and you're talking about this stuff in our own lifetime memories, we've seen a huge change. Like you were saying earlier, James, we've seen a huge change in all this. When we were growing up, when we were little, the things that we were seeing, Steve kind of had a family that he could talk about it a little bit, and I didn't. I had that kind of experiences where you didn't speak about it in the house. You kept it on the down low, And other than that, we were both having experiences at a very young age, like a lot of people listening tonight. But we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the shows. We didn't have the outlet. And that's why I think shows like yours, Dave's and some of the other ones out there are really important because it gives people a chance to say, hey, this happened to me. What was it like for you? And to compare it, we had books. We had to go searching books, and
dig in the library and actually use a card catalog to dig through the stacks there. And television-wise, we had like In Search Of, and that was basically it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of the good books were hard. Like you were going to find them in a school because people, your school library as a kid, because they'd never make it in there. They were deemed to be just too far out to be anything to do with an education, and they'd be stuffed in the back of a real library.
Sysco has a good story about that, where she went to the library and asked for the books on ghost stories.
I'll be happy to tell you and give some of the younger listeners, an idea of what it was like for us. At the time, my mom had gotten a divorce, so it was just her and I, and she was always in a hurry, single mom on the go, trying to get things done. And we moved a lot, and my first stop was always the library because I'd go and get as many books out as I could, and as long as I had books, I had something to do, And I ran into this one library, and it was back when you had the Dewey Decimal System, and you had to look everything up in a card catalog. And she just parked up front and said, just hurry in there and grab what you can grab. So I went up to the librarian, and I said, ma'am, I know that, I'm supposed to look this up, but I'm looking for ghost stories. If you could just point in the direction. I'm about 10, maybe. And she pointed over in the direction, and it's a number, and you go and look. And I was excited, and I ran, and I pulled down these books, and they were all the kind of books like things that go bump in the night for kids, and I was like, no, that's not it. And I run back up to her, and she's the typical librarian at the time, hair on top of her head, glasses, a little sweater on her shoulders. And I said, ma'am, I'm sorry. I said, I'm in a hurry. That's not it. I'm looking for the true ghost stories. And she stood up and she pulled her glasses down off her nose. She looked right at me. She said, there are no true ghost stories.
Oh.
And that's kind of like it was for us back then. So, you could go over to the occult. You could go over, maybe you were lucky enough to find something in that area, or witchcraft, or, history of those things and stuff like that. But you really had to dig to get something good, and I found
the local bookstores.
Yeah, exactly.
Esoteric section would be, one little shelf of metaphysical and occult books, and it would usually not be what I was looking for, but that's where the ghost books were shelved as well, and UFOs, any kind of encounters.
Exactly, they didn't have a place for them, really. And now, in just a short time, a short lifetime. you turn on. I'm flicking. I've got my TV on silent right now. Is like Ghost Adventures, Dead Files, this, that. I bet you if I flick around, I'll find 4 or 5 more. And it's different. It's just different, And I think that's one of the reasons Steve and I are writing this book, because we kind of feel like things are coming full circle. It's like 20 years ago we were looking for that one picture of a full apparition, or you wanted to see this, and you're on your edge of your seat trying to see one of these shows, like maybe Unsolved Mystery, where they give you a little history and then they'll tell you a little bit about the ghosts that they see. And now it's gotten to the point where there's so many of them you can't believe any of it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, because of the CG and the tech.
Renaissance, and there's going to be this is going to be remembered, I think, as the new golden era of the occult and ghost hunting and I think it'll equal, if not surpass, the spiritualist movement of the turn of the last century.
Yeah, quite possible.
And we've had a bit of an awakening, and we discuss that quite often on our show, the weekends, spiritual awakening. We have a lot of people coming out and saying, yeah, I've been seeing these things for years, or it's just something they're now tuning into. And and like Sysco, when your mom, parked her horse outside the library and you had to go in there back in the day, like there was no airplanes then, so UFOs were something. No, I'm kidding. You make it sound like it's like 73.
They had potatoes.
Okay.
My son once asked me, "Do they have potatoes when you were a kid?" I'm not that old.
Yeah, no, they didn't even have rocks when you were a kid.
Exactly.
But it's changed. We're not putting people. We're not locking people up anymore because they're hearing. Well, I shouldn't say that. They're seeing things, and they're coming out and saying, I see things, I hear things, and a long time ago they would just put you in that fancy room with the pads on the wall.
Exactly.
Now it's a little. It's baby steps. As Elizabeth and Eileen were talking in the first hour, they went through the abduction, the alien abduction, and that wasn't something you wanted to say out loud because you got pushed off. No one was inviting you to the card game. Now there are organizations, there's groups, and they can bounce this information off each other. Same with near-death experiences. Same with seeing spirits. Same with hearing voices and seeing angels or spirit guides. It is coming to the forefront. But why now? Why is it sped up so much? Is it life imitating the arts? Is it because we have paranormal television shows that now people are comfortable? Or did people get comfortable and that's what allowed the paranormal TV shows to come in?
Well, if you're asking me, I think it's a little of both.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah, that would be my answer. It's the chicken or the egg, it's just that quandary. Couldn't really have one without the other. It's almost a preponderance of evidence and things now. Like you were saying, now you don't even know what to believe because there is so much CGI and Photoshop and things. But I think, if you separate the signal and the noise, there's a lot more evidence than we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Right.
I've always said, how many pictures of a ghost do you need to prove it's real? Well, one.
Right.
All you need is one picture. You just need people to believe that the picture's not doctored. But that's the mountain we climb.
That's correct. And Steve and I had said that on another conversation we were talking about. He says, I could take a picture of a full apparition in my room right now and then, in my living room and put it on, Facebook or whatever. And you're just going to get all these people telling you did this or you did that. And I mean, I've got some pictures that I took out in Gettysburg, and I wasn't doing it to get it. I was actually, it's going to sound stupid, but honestly, I was just taking it to remember where I was, because I just don't go to get evidence anymore. I know it's there. I don't need the evidence. If I'm there for a reason, I'm there just because I've been pulled there or drawn there or asked to go to help somebody out, and I'm not there to take the evidence. I think Dave said it last week. It's like, why do you want to go into a haunted place to prove it's haunted? It's like going into a bar to prove that there's alcohol there. And I kind of understood what he meant by that, but that's not to put down anybody. Yeah, but I don't mean to put down anybody that will go into a place to try to create evidence, because they found their way to deal with whatever they're dealing with. It's like a personal thing. I get both sides of that. You're finding your way to deal with your own personal thing. And there's some great, fantastic paranormal investigators out there, and they really try. And the only ones that I think I kind of would like to talk to a little bit about it is the ones where they said, no, it's just the evidence. We don't want to talk about feelings or have a medium or psychic or any like that. But then again, if you look at the big picture of it, you could get an EVP that says, help me. Mm-hmm. But how do you know who it is? How do you know who's saying it? How do you know, I know human beings, I can't believe what they're saying to me. How are you going to believe somebody that's dead or somebody that's messing with your head on a tape? You just don't know. Yeah. So I'd say go take every tool you can, and that includes, a psychic or a medium or, a trusted intuitive, something like that. Get them all, and then gather it all together. That's just my opinion.
When you were at Gettysburg, did you run into Mark Nesbitt?
I did.
Oh, he's a friend of our show and a brilliant guy. You'll have to.
What a nice guy. You'll
have to send your photos of whatever. What did you catch in your photos? Because he has a wall filled with tourist photos with stuff on it.
Yes, he does. He was one of the 4 people I did show those photos to, because I wanted to see if he had gotten any of the same, in the same spot. Because my concern is it, residual? Is it a loop? Is it this, or is it intelligent? Because if it's intelligent, there's somebody there. You know what I mean? If there's somebody there, let's send somebody to talk to him. Hey, it's your free will. If it's your spirit. Do you know you're here? Are you confused? Do you realize that you're dead? That takes time. You can't just go, hey, do you know you're dead? You have to get, and it's a process. James, I've heard you talk before. You've got your own process too, and it's very heartfelt, and that's why I connected to you too. But you understand what I mean. So I sent him to him, and I said, hey, are you catching anything? Because I felt bad. I didn't even know there was anything in the photographs till after I had left, or else I would have gone right back and gotten people that that I trust, that I was with, to see if we could help in any way, because 150 years is a little bit too long to keep battling on. I'm a soldier. I was in the Army. I know you've done, your stuff. I mean, I don't care what year. That's, it's a brother soldier,
Oh yeah.
And it shouldn't go on. But anyway, you asked me what I caught. I caught 3 heads peeking over the top. I was on the wheat field. Are you familiar with Gettysburg?
I've never been there, but I've studied it with Mark, just kind of online, talking about the photos as it came up.
Oh, goodness. He can tell you a lot more than I ever could. I am not an expert at all. I'm just,
Oh, no, we had him on for 2 hours, and it was just fascinating.
Amazing, yeah. Well, he used to be a guide there, so he's got it by heart. And then he went back again, and that was one of the first places I slept. I went Halloween night, 150th. It was just a whirlwind thing. I grabbed both my sons, and I said, let's just do this. And I'd been getting pulled there. You understand that, when you're getting pulled to a certain thing, and it won't leave you alone. And I'm like, okay, I'm going. Why me? But I'll go. It's just me. I'm nobody special, But sometimes I think, and it's just a theory. There's no solid answers in this. It's all just theories if you think about it, And I'm certainly not an expert, but I just really felt like maybe my guides were connecting with theirs, or maybe it's something else I don't understand, like, I don't know, reincarnation, or maybe who knows what, All I know
that's what it takes sometimes is 2 or 3 people either working in concert or each of you will have a little bit of information. I know in my own personal experience, Sysco has helped me solve some things that I've came across, and then she would know who to go to seek help with for the parts that she didn't know about. So it's all working together. There is no one expert, but there are many experts, and everybody has different skills and facets to their personality. So that's what makes it even more amazing when you can see the work of another person, and then how that interleaves with it.
Oh yeah,
and also having the wherewithal to back away from it if you know it's not you. You know what I mean? Instead of jamming, you know what I mean? And tell James about the breeze. I think he would be fascinated with that.
Yeah, I've had prophetic dreams off and on my entire life, and I started having a dream about this motorcyclist that had crashed, and the body was kind of like half buried in the weeds, and he was coming to me in this corporal form, but yet was able to speak, and he wanted his family to know where he was at and what happened to him. And this kind of stuff freaks me out. I mean, I'm more of a storyteller and legend tripper. I'm not that much of an investigator anymore. I don't do the spirit work that some of the people do, although I think I can to an extent. I like leaving it to the experts. So I let Sysco know about it, and she immediately picked up on it. Got all this information just out of the ether, basically. She went to one of her psychic experts, and we'd been looking for this motorcycle, this crashed motorcycle, because I had an idea of roughly where it was in a time frame. And she sits down with her psychic friend. The first word out of the lady's mouth before Sysco even told her why she was there was stop looking for the motorcycle. So that, when they open up with telling you what you've come to them for, then you know you're on the right track.
Right.
As far as I know, we were able to get the guy some, he was able to pass on because I haven't had any visitations from him in a long time now.
Right. Well, the tough part about it, James, was Steve's having these dreams, and he suffered with it for we're just not 1 or 2. He 4 or 5 months. And every time he said it was what was the movie, Werewolf in London? If anybody's ever seen that.
Guy was just, he was
Yeah.
a little more decomposed each time that he came to me.
Yeah.
Right. And he had a hard time looking at him, and he kept saying, well, I have a feeling that he wants to cross, but he wants to get a message to his mother, or there's something about the mom, he's, what's going on there. He passes it on to me, and right away I got, well, it's not that he wants his mother to know that he's dead. He's afraid to face his mom because he can't forgive himself. You see. And that's the part I wanted you to hear, James, because I've heard you say that before. It's a hard thing to forget. You can forgive other people, but it's hard to forgive yourself for even the little things, know. And I said, well, he's done some things he's not proud of, and now he's afraid to cross because of dogma or, what other things we put into our heads and we've taught all our lives or believe, and that's fine. So I got that part. Steve goes back, and the next time he shows up, he's talking to me. Got him a little closer, but we couldn't get him over that hump, and that's why I went to a friend of mine. And we had been sitting there Google Earthing the heck out of this because, Steve's got some landmarks and stuff. And speed it up, I go to her, and she says, quit looking for the motorcycle. That's not what it's about. That's, he does have one, but the symbol is. And like I said, it's like therapy. It takes a couple of times. And finally, after about the 5th time, I said, Steve, just call his mother. You tell her to come across, and he'll believe her. And tell him that if he doesn't want to stay, he doesn't have to. He could come, whatever. It's free will. But at least let him know he can if he wants to. And that's all it is, because they're confused or misled and that's sad because they, ghosts are people too. If it was me, if it was somebody I cared about, I know, James, you go through that too. If you knew somebody, and that's basically what it is. I have a hard time. I have a little theory, and it's like if you're walking down the street and there was a hole, and you walk by the hole and there was a person stuck in that hole as a human being, would you walk by? Would you ignore it? Would you reach out a hand? Would you ask them for $50 first? Would you ask them to knock 3 times and answer yes and no? Would you take an EVP of it and go show your friends and leave them there? What would you do? It's a human being in the hole. You would help him. And that's really it. That's it. That's as plain as you can get it.
Yep. Comes down to doing the best you can for another person,
right?
Basically, one of your fellows. So
right. And if you think about Gettysburg, Jane, I mean, any of these places, I don't know. Like you said, you've not been, but when you go, if you've ever been to New Orleans,
no.
Okay, you can imagine what Bourbon Street looks like. There's a bar every 2 feet.
Yeah.
Well, in Gettysburg, there's a ghost hunt every 2 feet. It's like the Bourbon Street for ghost hunting, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I can't imagine having that many ghost hunting places, and then you walk over 6 more feet, and there's all these soldiers repeating the same thing over and over again, not residual, but actually reliving it over and over again, And for a soldier to go through a battle once is enough. That's too much, that's it. Just ripped my heart out. And Steve will tell you, walking through Gettysburg, you kind of, if you're any kind of an empath, and I know you are, James, and and Steve is, and intuitive and clairvoyant and all kinds of things, you feel that. You walk through, and all of a sudden you're nauseous, or you're sad, or depressed, or in pain.
You're like a beacon. It's like you're walking through this dark area with a flashlight. So all these people that are there in the darkness, they're attracted to you and your light. Mm-hmm. And that took me a long time to understand when I was younger, why all these things would seek me out, or what was it about me. And my grandmother and her teachings helped me to understand a lot of that. And there's times you have to turn it off. You've got a limited amount of energy, and there's only so much you can do sometimes. And as sad as that is, there's only so much you can provide. Mm-hmm. That's where it's nice to have friends and know other people that have similar abilities, and then things where it looks at a group or a concerted effort.
Yeah.
I find it's one of those things in doing an investigation, and I've actually grown out of doing investigations like we had done, where you've got all your gear and you want to talk to something. And you think that's fascinating, and you get all excited. It's like fishing for the first time. But once you get a communication, you and have had contact with these beings and these spirits, you start looking at them differently. You look at them as they're stuck. Yes, there are some that are just, they have the same personality as they did on this side.
True.
But gosh darn it, you just want to smack those ones, but you don't. It's just it's just what they are. And I belonged to a group that was associated to TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society. What a bunch of, anyway, they just want evidence, and the groups that I was belonging to, they didn't even want to share it with the client. It was all theirs, and it was a horrid way of dealing with those that had passed and were stuck. And we'd walk away.
I can imagine.
And it was frustrating. It was so frustrating not to be able to help them. So with the Canadian Paranormal Society that I belong to now, we've really modified the way we deal with those beings. And you come in with that helping state of mind. If the client wants to know why they're there, we'll do our best to find out. But if the client wants it out, then that's what we're going to concentrate on. And we were in Concrete, Washington, which is a lovely, lovely haunted place. And that's, Steve, you should go to that one. They're having a Paracon coming up in, I think it's September But
nice. I'll check that out.
Yeah, Forest Moon Paranormal's putting it on. We went last year, but what a town! It's like built on what do you call it? Built on quartz. It's got a couple of rivers running beside it, and I went on a walk with the mayor of Concrete, who was pointing out all the places that we would see ghosts, because they're that visible because of the geology of the place. Yeah,
the quartz and the water. That's the flow of the energy right there.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. Wow. But we went to a bar. And because we do that, the only bar in town
to see if there was alcohol there.
Yeah, we saw, and we found it. Just ask Dave. But we went with Christina George, a really good psychic out of Sacramento, who has her own paranormal group, and there were ghosts everywhere. And two we talked to wanted to leave, and when we come back next time, we're going to help them out. One wanted to stay. He was actually been on the property from before the building was built. He's about 22 years old, and imagine a 22-year-old kid hanging out in a bar and since the turn of the century. So
was he a jumper?
A jumper? In what way?
I'm sorry. That's what I call them. I was a bartender for a long time, and I'm pretty familiar with jumpers.
Oh no.
That's what I call him. Yeah.
He just would hang out in the bar and watch the people dance and listen to the music and have a great time. And then there was the jerk we called the creeper, who would hang out at one end of the bar, and he would, if you had a few too many drinks and your vibration got a little bit lower, he would egg you into fighting.
Right
there he is.
Yeah, he'd get two people fighting. So we asked the bartender, said, when you have fights in this bar, when you do have them, where do they occur? And she pointed down by the pool table. It's always down there. And that's where this guy hung out. He also we called him the creeper because he followed girls into the bathroom and would stand over top of them when they were peeing. So, or I shouldn't say peeing, when they're using the John or Jill. I don't know what it is. But Christina George was using the facilities, and this guy stood right over top of her, and she looked up at him and said, I can see you, right? And he just smiled at her. He doesn't want to leave. Exactly. He's got to get pushed out. And there were people that came and went with one of the staff members. There was an old guy in a top hat who sat at the end of the bar, but only when the specific lady was on shift, because she reminded him of his daughter. So, brilliant place. We identified these through a psychic, and we have a plan now to cross over to the two ladies, leave the 22-year-old kid because he's happy, and the owners don't mind, and we'll kind of push out the guy that causes the fights. But that'll take a little work. But this is what I feel comfortable with.
James?
Yeah.
You see how beautiful that is? That you can see all that now, and you can all take your talents and work together as a village or group, and take care of that. And then they can make the conscious choice out of free will, like not the creeper, because he's got to go deal with his stuff.
Yeah.
You might have to do something else to do with him. But but the others, and as long as you let the 22-year-old know that, hey, if you change your mind, or, say 100 years from now, if this isn't a bar anymore and you're getting stuck, we want you to know that you can do this, that you don't have to stay, and that's free will choice. That's, that's a beautiful thing, But that's your jumper right there, your creeper, and that's what I was talking about, because that's exactly, you said it 100% correct. When somebody comes in there and their vibrations get lowered down, and people don't realize that, they don't realize that if you say not everybody going into the bar is going in to have a good time. They're going in because they need a drink. They're going in because they need to be somewhere other than where they were, just to get away from it. They're depressed, they're this, they're that. All that lowers your vibrations, and they sit and they wait. That's what I call jumpers. They sit and they wait until just the right amount of time where you've lowered all your defenses without realizing it, and they jump in because they can't taste alcohol. They can't get that feeling. They can't, or drugs or whatever it is. And they like to fight or something else. And that I would sit and witness that. I had one, I'll tell it real quick. I won't take up your time. I had one, I always called him a shot of tequila, no salt. And that was what I had the name for him. And I would go into this bar and I was managing it, which means that you're basically the bartender and everything else. You know, you open up and your regular clientele would come in. And I was right outside of an Army base. I had just gotten out of the Army, so I stayed there. And this was in Alabama. And you get a little of your TDY guys coming in. You know, they're there for like 2-3 weeks, but they're staying at the hotel. So they come in, you get to know them by name. You get to know their emotions and everything else. And this one guy comes and sits. And he's telling me, you know, he misses his kids and his wife. And he's telling me about this swing set that he put together for him. And he's showing me pictures, you know, typical homesick guy, you know. And he's just having a beer and he's eating some peanuts that we had there in a bowl. And he said he was really hungry. And the kitchen was closed. So I got him some takeout menus. And I'm getting ready to order this food for him. And another couple came in and he's just sitting there in his mannerisms and everything. And like I said, I'm an empath, so you can kind of pick up, you know. And I turned around to change some bottles out or put some tops on bottles, something. And I turned around and his complete body language has changed. His eyes changed, the way, his facial tics, all those little micro, you know, expressions and stuff. And he drank the beer down real fast. And he said, he got out his wallet and kind of fumbled around and put it on the bar. And I said, do you want me to order your food if you chose something? And he says, I'm not hungry. He goes, I need change for the pool table. The way he spoke changed. And he said, give me a shot of tequila, no salt. And by gosh, if this guy didn't just shoot it down, go over and play pool, it was empty except for the couple and him. And I'm watching him in the mirror. And I forgot about the part where I was looking in the mirror, putting the bottles. And I see this kind of white kind of mist behind him, not big, just a little mist like behind where his head is, in the mirror, in the bar mirror. And I thought to myself, just a mental note, I got to clean that mirror. It's dirty. And I looked up again to see where the spot was, and it was gone. And that's when he had changed. So over a course in time where this guy was TDY, he was there for a couple of weeks. He'd come in, he'd, you know, have his beer, everything else, and before you know it, he'd change. Shot of tequila, no salt, go play some pool, come back, real bad headache, I'm not hungry anymore, and he would leave. And it took me a little bit to put it together. And when I put it together was when we were a little bit busier, and there was this little guy sitting, just this there's this little guy not paying, you know, any bothered anybody, in a little suit. He had come in with some office people. And he's like, no, I don't want anything to drink. I don't, you know, I'm just here. They, you know, small talk. And I went around, did another table and come back. And this guy's personality changed everything. And he just looked at me and smiled, shot of tequila, no salt. And then he asked me for change for the pool table. And this would keep happening. And so I put it together that we have a jumper in the bar. And, you know, at the time, I don't have the ability to deal with that the way I would like to, not then. And I didn't know the people I know now. So now I could go to somebody else and say, look, you know, I need a little help here. You know, we have a jumper like your creeper in that bar. So that's a jumper, folks. So if you ever go into a bar and you lose time, not all blackouts are caused by alcohol. Keep that in mind.
Well, that's kind of creepy. Well, that's what I find too. It's those who still like the taste of heroin. Those that keep the person, even though they go to recovery, they jump them again because they need that boost, and it's the way they can get it is to attach or jump a regular person. A regular person. Yes. A living person. I
actually just had a very close personal experience with that, and you're 100% correct. Not myself, but and I knew enough to tell the person, okay, you've got all this other stuff, but this is what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to go sit with these people and just make sure you don't have any attachments, that there's nothing hanging around, because you really need a fair shot at this. And they absolutely did. There was 2 of them.
Yeah.
There was 2 of them. And I just had a feeling, it was past my ability, so I knew who to take them to, and it was absolutely true. They had attachments. You're 100% correct.
Sysco, have you read any of the reports of the young men in Boston that'll walk into a bar,
yes,
and then make you walk out a couple hours later, and then they find them in the river dead?
Yes.
I think there's some kind of very malevolent jumper or something involved there. There's even like camera footage of the guys leaving the bars alone, and majority of the time they'll leave their coat inside. And when the bodies are found in the River Charles there, they still have their wallet, they still have their cell phone, things in their pocket. There's something going on there. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but that's when I first heard about it. I'm thinking jumpers.
Yeah, and I think Dave Scott had somebody on talking about the missing men in Boston. We actually have that in Vancouver, British Columbia, too. In the older part of town, which is called Gastown, there's a number of men who've walked out of the bar and just disappeared. And if you do kind of a search on them, or you look into their background, they're nothing other than they're single. There's no connection to crime, anything like that. There's no reason for them to just vanish.
Right.
Yeah, she's like college age, very bright, very studious, just generally nice young men that have decided to let their hair down a little bit on the weekend, and then that's the last anyone ever hears of them.
Or standing outside a bathroom waiting for his girlfriend to come out, and the security camera doesn't even have him leaving. They see him walk up, but they don't see him walk back. So what is going on? And anybody that knows, about this, they know that a lot of different energies can affect electrical stuff. So is there something like that happening? There's so many mysteries out there, but I think it's the ones that we just can't find the antidote for, scare the heck out of us. And now we start getting into this deeper stuff, like the black-eyed kids. Well, what's the defense for that? You know what I mean? We've got, but do you see where I'm going with this? It's like, if we can figure out, like, okay, vampires used to scare the heck out of us. Okay, you need garlic, you need salt, you need this, whatever it is, they have to be invited in. Everything's got a rule and a law. And if you can figure that out, we can put that to the back and go, okay, I know how to take care of that. And then we come to the next thing, what do you do to stop this? Well, we don't know what's causing it, so we can't stop it, and that's what scares us. We're always scared of the unknown.
Stress is always the lack of control of a situation, or perceived lack of control of a situation. So as a human being, we have to classify, put it into shelves. We have to number it. We have to break it down so we understand. Unfortunately, this stuff, we as humans in 2017 haven't really paid attention to this for 1,000 years. I'm sure people 1,000 years ago had this all figured out to a point. Yep. But if you think about Native
Americans, and I always just say Native American or First Nation, because anytime I start mentioning what nation, I get letters. Cherokees don't do that. Navajos don't do that. So I just basically, it's what my grandmother used to tell me was, if you stay away from people who are acting crazy. And at first I didn't understand that. Didn't yours tell you that, Steve?
Yeah.
And at first I didn't understand what she meant, because I thought maybe they would, harm me. She goes, no. Because if you're not all there, you're half here and half there. So you're half in the spirit world. You see what I mean? That was her way of explaining it to me. And we don't mess with the spirit world. You respect it. You take care of the earth.
A lot of the cautionary tales that she told me involved somebody that was out of their mind. And that was, to frighten me away from things like that. And she's very, very superstitious, but then when you look back, there's some sort of nugget of truth in those superstitions, that it was done for protection, that it was done, to ward something off, or to break something, or, for whatever reason, it was done for your protetion.
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out the hat on the bed, Steve. I don't understand that. I can't make a placement for that.
The hat on a bed?
Yeah.
My grandmother's house, if you put a hat on the bed, you had just killed somebody. That was the superstition. You might as well just go shoot them because you've killed somebody.
Somebody's going to die.
I walk in somewhere and there's a hat on the bed. I absolutely lose it. I'm like, I got to get that hat off the
bed. The little wives, the little things like if a broom drops, you're getting company, or if palm itches, you're getting money, little things like that. Where does that come from?
Oh, it's silly. It's like you walk under a ladder, it's bad luck. Well, yeah. You've got a tall hat on or something.
You can kind of figure that one out, though, James. Something could fall on your head, but, I can maybe even see the black cat because of familiars and stuff like that, and things change. But
the black cat is good luck.
Oh, I think so. I used to have 13 of them.
In the UK, the ships... Wow. Will have the battleships and the Royal Navy would have a black cat on their ships for good luck.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I saw a lot of that today. There was a lot of black cat promotions going on at the Para Unity thing, and I thought that was really cool. They were also giving a lot of the money to animal rescue, which I thought was very cool.
And what I find with black cats, they taste like chicken. So if you
stop it,
what? Well, you guys got to eat.
Well, let me hold the ears of the cat that's sitting next to me. You didn't hear that.
Oh my gosh, we've got a cat lady. Okay, we had a question come in from one of the chat rooms in Spreaker here, and it's for Sysco. Do you believe, like you and I and Steve believes that ghosts or spirits can jump a person? Are you familiar enough with ETs to say that they could do it too?
I can tell you I am unfamiliar with ETs enough to say I would never discount anything. Okay. Because why not?
That's me. And
why not?
My theory sort of goes that if they're capable of interstellar or interdimensional travel, then they could take you over just as easily as a ghost or whatever. I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I think.
And I would. I'm sorry. I would add to that if they are interdimensional or anything else, that they're probably more intelligent, so they probably wouldn't want to for very long, because it would probably be
I would drag it down.
Exactly.
My understanding too with ETs, and this is from people I've interviewed, is that they would need your permission to go inside of you, or they would need you would have to have been somehow connected to that ET family, like
which is quite possible.
The reptilian. Okay, I can go inside of a reptilian, and because I need to do this. Most of the time, if they want to do something with you, they will download or program you.
Exactly.
So come in your what they did to Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah.
The Gene Roddenberry. They allegedly stood around him and basically downloaded Star Trek to him. So
isn't it amazing? And I totally believe. I mean, I've been following Elizabeth April for a long time, which is hard to say because she's only 22. But my gosh, that girl!
You've been following her all her life. Yeah, she's quite amazing, quite the lady. Yeah,
isn't she something?
Yeah,
she's just as sweet. And I mean, just when you start, I don't know if anybody out there has watched her YouTube videos, but if you watch them, she gets you the first few seconds. She changes your whole vibrational level just by saying, "Hello, you beautiful beings of light," and you're already there.
Yeah. And she's cute as a bug's ear.
Isn't she? Oh, gosh, yeah.
She's adorable.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just the way it is. You meet people like that, and you just know, that there's something else, But, like you said, too, ETs, for the person who answered the question, asked the question, was which ones are you talking about? Because there's so many different kinds, and just like human, they all have different characteristics and different probably rules, and, some of them just don't care. I'm sure they're that out there. It gets me when people say, and I know none of your listeners are like this because they've been listening to this show and others, and they're very, very smart. But some people you just meet on the street or they give you your opinion, and everybody says UFO and ETs like it's all the little green men or little grays or whatever in flying saucers. And they characterize them. It's almost like saying all human beings are alike. Well, we have similar characteristics, but certainly not all human beings are alike when you start getting down into the definitions, And so it's hard to say.
I'm going to get you to hold that thought because this is our 7-minute stretch. And we're going to come back with more from Steve Stockton and young Sysco Murdoch. It sounds like a cowboy or a detective name, but we're going to be back more, and I'm going to get them to tell us some ghost stories right after this.
Excellent.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on 2 mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. 2 mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. stories so weird that we'll leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
The third Monday of every month, Spaced Out Radio is going to bring you a different look at everything paranormal. Welcome to The Reporters. Jim Mallard, Vanessa Hogel, Denise Garcia, and Christina George join me, Dave Scott, for a look at the weird and strange from the other side of the microphone. We'll break down ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, and the people investigating them. The paranormal media has never been heard like this. Come listen to The Reporters.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small, you're bound to find what you're looking for, so join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Reveal Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings, no matter where you are. It's time for you to make time for you.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Tonight's edition of Spaced Out Weekend is brought to you by spacedoutradio.com, where you can now sign up to become a Space Traveler member. Now, for the final time tonight, here's Spaced Out Weekend's James Tyson.
The final time tonight. Oh, thanks, Dave, kicking me out. And you're in Provincetown, Massachusetts, doing the Provincetown Paracon, walking around, going to Spectre's Pizza, or Spiritus Pizza, deep dish, almost that lovely pizza. I think I should go next Paracon I'm going to, if it's anywhere like that where they have good food. I want to thank everybody for coming back in. I want to thank our music man Ron Bumblefoot Thal and his gracious lending of his music for Spaced Out Radio and Spaced Out Weekend. Go follow him on Twitter. It's Bumblefoot on Twitter, and see the good work he's doing all over the world, giving back and helping children who have a gift and maybe a little bit shy of the funds to actually get themselves a good guitar, drum set, organ, or anything, or set of keyboards. That's how old I am. Hey, they got an organ, one of them big tubey things. No, they're keyboards, Daddy. But he helps them expand that gift. So again, that's Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and say hi for us. Say, go on Twitter and say, hey Bumblefoot, we hear your music every night on Spaced Out Radio, and he'll get a big kick out of that. I think Dave just sent him a Space Out Radio t-shirt or 3 too. So you may go to a concert one day and see Bumblefoot wearing a Spaced Out Radio T-shirt. He loves this. He loves what we're talking about, and that we're helping those souls that got a little bit stuck. We are talking to well, we're not really talking to Steve. Steve's here. Steve Stockton, who is a author, and his sinuses are a little bit plugged because he and I live in Cascadia, and it is where damp is manufactured and sent around the world. And we're having a very damp, cool spring. Hopefully winter won't be.
We need to go to the
summer.
Paranormal level with Steve. 2 for yes, Steve.
Yeah.
1 not for no.
And no, you can't touch me. Okay, you cannot touch me.
Something touched me.
I'm no jumper. Don't worry.
Okay. Yeah. Don't you dare come near me. And we're talking to Sysco. Murdoch has one of the best names in the paranormal. And there was a guy in Houston who did not Houston. Down in southern Texas, on the coast. He was doing tours. He had this fantastic name like Sam Steele or something like that. One of those great, like a cartoon name. But yeah, fantastic guy. But I can't remember what it is. But that's like you, Sysco, the Sysco kid, Sysco Murdoch. Just Murdoch.
I don't own the truck.
Hey,
They're not
Murdoch.
my trucks.
Drop and give me 25. Let's kind of dig back in now. Steve, you've written a few books, and covering basically your experience in and around the paranormal and what you've bumped into. Strange Things in the Woods, and was it Strange Things in the Wood 2?
More Strange Things.
More Strange Thing in the Woods, and then My Strange Life,
which is my book of personal encounters, and that one came out. Strange Things in the Woods was first, and that's basically stories that I've collected from friends, family members, acquaintances over the years. Just sometimes as simple as, "Hey, you know, did you ever see anything weird in the woods? Do you know any strange stories?" And they came about that way. And I just said I was a late life, unexpected baby, so my parents always interacted with people a lot older, never any kids my age to play with or anything. So that was how I entertained myself, was badgering the old folks to see if they knew any spooky tales. And then I more or less had an epiphany at my grandmother's funeral that, that just all the things that she had taught me and all the conversations and everything that we'd had, it stopped right there with her, and I just thought I need to write these stories down, let this continue on. And I, took that mantle upon myself, got 2 great books full of stories and more on the way. And then people would always say, well, what about your experiences? What's happened to you? And that's where My Strange World comes in. That's my personal experiences starting in childhood with the paranormal.
Very cool. Are there pictures in these books?
No, unfortunately not.
No, well then I'm sorry, I can't read them. If I can't color them, or there's pictures in them, I'm not going to read them. Steve, tell me, in My Strange Life, when did you first start experiencing these paranormal encounters?
I've had some minor experiences probably around the time I was 3 or 4 years old. But the most powerful one happened. I had just turned 6, or was just about to turn 6, and I saw a full-body apparition. I was in the front yard place we lived at the time. We were back off the road a little way. The driveway was a little over 200 feet long, so I was probably about 100 feet from the road. Ended in an inverted T there, with a stop sign. I was waiting for next door neighbor, which actually lived like half a mile away, lived out in the country, to come home. We made plans to play together. Well, I see a car come down the hill, stop at the stop sign. I thought maybe it was my friend, so I'm headed toward the road, and I realize that it's not his mom's car. Well, time I'm still headed that direction, I see a kid, a toddler, maybe a year, 2 years old, come out from behind the car and run across in front of the car. And I'm thinking, that little kid is going to get, clobbered, is going to get run over with the car. And I could see the driver in the car. She was looking both ways, no idea that she saw this kid. She didn't register anything. The kid continues to cross the street at a diagonal, comes down into our yard. And if you've ever seen kids that have just barely mastered the art of walking, sometimes they'll start running and then just kind of lose control and fall down. Well, that was what happened. And when this little boy was wearing blue, I can still see the outfit. When he fell, he just, boom, disappeared right where he fell. I didn't take my eyes off the spot. I walked straight to it. There was no hole there, nothing, no place a child could have hid. And I would have seen him get up and run away. And I even went back later on with a pick and a shovel and dug up the yard to see if there was anything there, but never found anything. And I asked my grandmother about that later on. She was a self-proclaimed gypsy witch, fortune teller, very involved in the spiritualism movement from the past century. And she said sometimes you'll see things that are just meant for you, or you'll see things to let you know that you're different and that you see things that other people won't. Sometimes there's an interpretation or meaning. Sometimes you may not know what it is right away or if ever. But that was the most vivid recollection I have, and it didn't scare me so much as it intrigued me. I'm thinking, because little kids don't run across the road into the yard and disappear. But that's started my lifelong exploration of the paranormal.
Well, that's weird. Or actually, it's an interesting event to have witnessed. Mine was when I was 16. A similar thing. I saw a kid with his dad after a car accident that I found out later had actually died in the car miles away from where I saw him. And I kept thinking back, and it was years later. I actually pulled his death certificate off. I was online and said, yeah, he died in the car. So,
isn't that just typical? What we all do, James, is we sometimes will see at an event, especially as a kid, and we don't realize till later that what had actually happened, that we saw a ghost or saw some, or entity or something like that, and that's usually what happens, and that feeds our knowledge. We want to know, so we start digging and talking, and and that's the whole reason we're doing this right now, because we take for granted. I mean, I could be wrong, but this is again my theory, that there's, even with it being saturated like it is right now, there's still those kids, I work with them all the time, that can't talk to their parents, and there really is something in their closet. Do you know what I mean? And they're still looking for answers, or they see something and they can't talk, like an imaginary child that's or playmate that's not imaginary. Steve had them too. And isn't it funny though? Even in today, where everything you think, because we're in this all the time and we're seeking knowledge in it, that there could still be those people that don't know, but there is. And that's, we still have to give information to them and give them an outlet. And that's what's so great about this show and other ones like it, because you really are trying to get at the truth and other opinions and open-mindedness. And, because we don't have the answers. We just have these puzzle pieces that we're trying to make fit, and we don't have the cover to the box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I definitely know. It's experience like Steve's and anything you, like the photos you took at Gettysburg and whatever you bumped into as a kid, and the experiences of our listeners. Very few listeners tune in because they don't believe in what we're talking about, because we would lose them pretty quick. They would just say, oh, you guys are all crazy, and go. But our listener basically has experience. And the reason, and I've always said this, people do paranormal investigations not for their clients, not because somebody lets them in their house, not because I have a tape recorder and I want to go talk to a ghost. It's because we have questions. We've experienced something and we actually have questions. And if you're going to let me in your house, that's a bonus because I'm only there because I have so many bloody questions of what I'm seeing and what's going on in my life. And if you're going to let me talk to something or try to communicate with something, great.
One more little sliver to the whole piece of the puzzle, you know, and it's that we call it the paranormal onion, Steve and I, and that you just pull away a layer, and anybody I've been doing this 45 years. You know, and you say, well, haven't you learned anything? Yes, I've learned things, but if I have to be honest with myself, I have more questions now than I had when I started.
Absolutely, that's right. The more you learn, the more you find out that the less you actually know.
Yeah. I mean, it took me years. My first experience was in a haunted farmhouse. It was a 150 years old house in New Jersey. It was a farmhouse, and I was little, and I had lots of brothers and sisters who were all much older than me. When I was born, they were in high school. They hardly noticed me. You know, it's just, so separated. But they were all having experiences. I was having my experiences, but we weren't allowed to talk about them because, unfortunately, my dad was World War II vet, and he had horrible PTSD, and he had definitely had a drinking problem, and he became extremely violent. And now I can look back after what I've learned and said, now did us bringing that kind of energy into that home stir something up? Was it because we were in that home, he was being affected because he had lowered his defenses? I mean, there's so many more questions, you see. But we had it was many ghosts in there and many different things. There was a horrible, just an evil presence in the barn that I'm not sure what it was. And I'm glad in some ways I never found out. But the ghost that was haunting us in that farmhouse was a Revolutionary War soldier. Of course, I didn't know that when I was seeing him. And he was very angry. He had all of the things. Now I can look back and say, okay, this was a very lost, confused, angry ghost trying to get a hold of someone to help or something. He wanted attention. He would do all kinds of things. At least this one would, to get attention. He would apport things, bang things, show up. And the first time I saw him, he came at me like with just a flying head. There was no body. The only thing he could manifest was, I guess, at that time, was a head. And I was asleep taking a nap in my, parents' room, and I got woke up with this noise in the closet. And I thought somebody was messing in my mom's closet. And, you just sit up, you're a kid, and you look toward the noise, and all of a sudden this light slowly started coming up. It was big shuttered doors, and shutters, of course, have slats. So the light's coming through the slats, and it's coming at me. And then a mist started to form in that light, and it became a head. And it's harder. It happened so fast. It takes longer to tell it than the incident took. But the head just kept coming at me, and it's coming right at my face, and it was huge, and it dropped open its jaw as if to scream. And it was I'd say probably 25-year-old man, somewhere around in there. He had a ponytail, brown hair with a red ribbon in it, and his eyes were closed. When he opened his eyes, it was a red light. He did not have red eyes. It was a light emanating from where his eyes were. And I just flew back as just a reflex because it was coming at me. I didn't want to get hit with it. And I watched it fly over me and disappear into the wall behind me. And I'm screaming. My sisters and my mom come running in. The door busts open. And, of course, they shut me up because I'm a little kid. And nobody's listening to me. You had a nightmare. You had a dream. It's okay. All this talking. I get bustled out of the room, and I overhear my sister say, I just kept repeating, red eyes, red ribbon, red eyes, red ribbon. I'm just repeating this. I'm hysterical. And I hear, as I'm being carried out the room, overhear my sister tell my mother, red ribbon, red eyes, Mom, just like I saw. And I hung on to that phrase because I knew we weren't going to be able to talk about it. We were all scared of my dad. You didn't bring up this nonsense, quote unquote. But she saw what I saw, And, you'd see him going up the stairs. You'd see him, just flits of him sometimes. But I found out later in years that they saw him a lot more than I thought. And at a family reunion 20 years later, these pieces start falling into place and people start talking about it now. And I found out that my brother and my father had, my mother wanted a bigger pantry in the house, a bigger closet in the kitchen. They knocked down a wall, and my father was drinking, and my brother was probably in high school. So he just did what my dad said: take this debris out, and in the country, you take it outside and you put it in a bonfire, you burn it.
Mm-hmm.
They tear down this wall, and behind the wall, they found a hidden staircase, like what they called a servant staircase that would go from the kitchen up to the master bedroom, where they could carry food and trays, I guess, back in the day. And the staircase went right up to the back of my sister's closet. And night after night, she would see, not every night, but often, him standing right outside of that closet in full uniform, the same guy that I saw. And I also found out that my dad found some papers and letters and things in that hidden room that had been closed off, and they were tied up with a red ribbon. And he had my brother burn them.
Oh, so for crying out loud!
I know, isn't that absolutely crazy? Yep.
Which side of the revolution was this guy on?
I don't know. I mean, if to go by just everything, I would say he was probably, fighting, for America. I mean, he was on our side, but there were so many battles where we lived. It was right there by the Battle of Monmouth. It was not far from the Battle of Freehold. It was a lot of things happened right here in Jersey, and it's so hard to tell because after I got out of the Army and I started really looking into all this, of course, it had been torn down and it's now in development. So, I think I've been trying to help him ever since. I think that was one of my things because it was just, I never got, of course, you're scared of anything that jumps out in front of you, of course, but I never got anything evil from him, James. I did from the thing in the barn. There was definitely something in the basement. You could feel it. You know how you feel different, You feel scary, and jumping out at you is a little different than feeling evil come. You can feel it before it gets there. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't get that from him. I got scared, lonely, confused, hurt. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Was he hidden in that room? Was he hurt and wounded and maybe something happened? I mean, there was obviously letters in there. Was it him? Was it just a coincidence with the red ribbon? We'll never know.
We had a spirit. We had to move out of a house, and we used a Skeeter well house to do an astro viewing and move this guy along. And he was only in the house because some kids found a wallet of his and did a Ouija board thing saying, "Hey, we'd like the guy who owns a wallet to come through."
Right.
Well, he did, and freaked everybody out. And they got rid of the wallet up in the attic and dumped it like down between some walls, and unfortunately, the wallet is still in the house. And when we were talking to him, he said, "Well, I'm here because I got called to be here, and I'm attached to the wallet. I can't leave."
And it takes such a little thing, like maybe the kids found it. I had heard you tell the story, so I'm a little familiar with the story you told. And I thought when I heard it, did the kids take it and go, who belongs to this wallet? Come and get it. It just takes a little thing. Stephen, are you okay? Steve. Did he fall on the mic?
Stephen? Oh, he fell asleep.
Did he fall asleep?
Yeah.
With all the medication he's taking, he may have fallen out.
Yeah, that is funny.
I wouldn't blame him. I mean, he's so sick.
No, I'm here. I actually have my microphone on mute.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that was good. No, that was fine. I was about to
sleep.
I was about to look up the number to 911.
But yeah, about the wallet, it just takes, isn't it fascinating that it could just take something small like that? Like I've even heard people that have called in a spirit because they said something, like they say, don't speak ill of the dead. Yeah. Well, maybe that's a little something like Steve was saying earlier that really has truth to it, because they've actually called that spirit in because of anger or whatever. See, there's so many mysteries.
Inanimate objects can have attachments to them, whether it was put there by a person or if it attached itself. I've witnessed little things like that little card Buddha that you told me not to go back and get from that office. That had some sort of attachment.
Yeah. Well, gosh, you should tell James about that. I mean, he just got out of work out of a place where what you said people were dropping 2 a week in that place.
They're carrying a couple of people a week out of there in ambulances, and just it was a very active place. I would see people walk into the men's room. She just turned the corner just in time to see a pant leg go in the men's room door, and then there would be nobody in there. And apparently there had been at least one suicide in the building a few years ago. Oh. But it was just very, very evil place. There was something at work there that it was affecting people that didn't really know what it was.
It's just...
And he was... he was getting sicker and sicker and sicker and couldn't see. It was over Christmas time, and every time I talked to him, like, man, you're circling the drain. You got to get out of there. Yeah. And he had asked me, I just got this feeling, and that's what a lot of this is. I had pneumonia. I'd never had pneumonia in my life before. And
your immune system dropped, and now you're getting everything.
Yeah, but it was just one of those things when you were there every day, and I worked 6 days a week. I picked up the extra shifts and things. You didn't really realize what you were in the midst of until you were well and away from it for a good while.
That's this. When we run into some of these spirits who don't cross, they don't want to cross because they think they're going to go to hell. Like, so if a guy commits suicide, I'm not going to cross because I'm going to get in trouble. Someone commits a crime, broke one of the 10 Commandments, which is funny because they don't have cannibalism on the 10 Commandments, so I guess that's okay.
Well, you're right, James, and that's, you fall into a lot of that. That's why I try to do as much battlefield rescue as I can. I don't know if you've ever spoken to Patrick Burke, but he does it. He quit doing everything else. He just goes and does battlefield rescue. He's an old soldier, and he just doesn't want to leave no man behind, and that includes women, anybody in boots. And he does that. And that's what I ran into in Gettysburg, because I'm talking to these, these soldiers, and, in the way we could. And basically, they were intelligent enough to realize that these groups were coming in, like every 2 hours and asking all these impertinent questions and, what was the war like and what's it feel like to be shot and, all these other things. And they just tired of it. They didn't even want to talk to anybody walking up. So you got to break that barrier. Yeah. Then you got to kind of figure, are you choosing to stay? Do you realize you're dead? You can't start out like that. You've done this, mm-hmm. And it takes a while. And then you have to try to convince them. You have to think back, what time period are you working with? What were their beliefs? What were the religions at that time? What are they being told? What's the dogma? Because one of them I spoke with, the whole thing was, first of all, he didn't have any loved ones. He was an orphan. And the only camaraderie and really kind of anything that had to do with love or family he had was the men he fought with. He wasn't leaving the ones that he was there with. He had nothing else to go to. And then he said to me, who could love me? Who, after the things I've done, who could love me? I cannot go there, And that's basically right there what it is. That's what you're talking about. They get that idea in their head and they stay. They're afraid to cross over. So,
that's the biggest one. The ones who have and that is one, like the one end of the pendulum. The other one is children who, their mother and father still might be alive. And when they pass, the light opens up or whatever happens, and somebody comes through and says, okay, Billy or Debbie, it's time to come across. Yeah. And it's stranger danger. I don't know who this person is, so I'm not going.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
One of the questions, and this is coming out, but there's a question: how does Stephen and Sysco tie in the paranormal with like interterrestrials, interdimensionals, or do you guys venture into the ET side of thing at all? You're pretty well dug in with what is happening with dead humans on Earth, right?
Right.
I think it all ties together, though. I think they're just, different facet of the same gemstone, if you will, there. Mm-hmm. And while they're not directly related necessarily, they can be, but there is some relationship there toward it. It's all tied together. It's like the string theory, the unified field theory. Everything is connected to some degree, I believe.
Yeah. And again, to me, my first question would be which ET? Because I mean, or which extra dimensional? Because I really think that there's a lot of. I mean, if you talk to David Weatherly too, he'll tell you that there's so many crossover. I personally believe, like even some cryptids can be interdimensional. You know what I mean? But again, I don't have all the answers. I might learn something tomorrow that'll change everything in my head. It's like watching forensic files. To the last 5 minutes, you think that guy did it till you find another piece of evidence, and it keeps changing. It keeps changing. Yeah. But I do. I think it can be.
I think a lot of the cryptids are like that. I mean, if you look at Mothman, if you look at Bigfoot, if you look at the Blackwoods creature, if you look at they're all just things that don't exist per se within our realm, so therefore they've got to be interdimensional or come from somewhere.
Yeah, and just because we can't cross yet, or found a way, or maybe we have and we don't know it, but doesn't mean they haven't been able to figure it out.
Yeah,
like look at black-eyed kids. What the heck is that?
Experiences, I've come across things that I've been told were elemental in nature, and that opens up a whole other thing. That's of this earth from a different plane of the earth than we exist on. So, gets into some pretty heady stuff there. And the black-eyed kids. You don't want to get me started on that one. I had the black-eyed kid experience.
There's a knock on my door, Steve. I'm coming to Portland, man. Every time you talked about it, there's knocking on my door.
One of those things, it's like a tulpa or whatever. It seems like the more you mention it and the more you feed into that, the more involved you become with it. And that's why I was reluctant for years to even talk about my experience. It was very, very short, but it was one of the most frightening encounters I've ever had. I've came up with some pretty hardcore stuff, but that one, it was just so unsettling and unnerving on a primal level. It was like total fight or flight. So I don't even like to talk about that. I kid Sysco and tell her I'm waiting for the black-eyed Playboy bikini models that show up with pizza and beer.
Yeah, because, well, you know what? It's still, they'd have that black eye thing and it still wouldn't work. Yeah. You'd be going, I can't get my eyes off of those.
Well,
we've talked about that. Like, they send the MIBs. It's like, well, nobody would talk to them, because they're weird. They dressed funny. Like, okay, we'll send black-eyed kids. Everybody loves kids, so they send kids. No, it doesn't work. Everybody's scared of them. Clowns. Okay, everybody loves clowns. Who doesn't love clowns? Sending phantom clowns. It's like, no, we don't want clowns. It's like, maybe this, if it is extraterrestrial, it's not quite so intelligent life that keeps trying to send something to get it into the house. I mean, even before the MIB, you had vampires. So,
and isn't it odd they have to be invited? They have to be invited, or they have that hypnotic, telepathic thing going on.
It's kind of the same thing from the vampires to the MIB to the, I don't know so much about the clowns trying to come in. I was just using that facetiously, but it makes you wonder, did they get a combination right, and that's why you haven't heard about it, because whatever it is that shows up, people are letting it in?
It got in.
Yeah.
That's creepy. That goes back to what we were talking about before. Until we realize the rules, that one's really going to freak us out.
Tell me, bikini bottles with beer and pizza.
I don't know. They've always, every week they try to get into my house, but they dress up as Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yep.
And they dress really well. I got to tell you, they're very attractive and they dress really well. So that's how I know they're aliens.
I can make you laugh. He told this black-eyed story that happened to him on another, we were talking about it, and the next morning I get woke up with that bang, 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 bang on my door. That incessant knock.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang,
The
bang,
same night, I had a female scream just outside the window about 4 o'clock in the morning. It was just a piercing teenage girl type scream. I thought it was my daughter who was in the other room. I ran in there and woke her up, and she's like, I'm sound asleep. I have no idea what you're talking about. She said, but that's what you get for talking about the black-eyed kids.
Yeah.
Yep. But it is. It's I know your listeners know about tulpas too and things like that. The more you put into it, or calling it, give it more attention. It's like you're turning your light brighter or something. And
it feeds all that energy, and it's like what Slender Man and some of those things, or the Shadow that we were talking about. I think the guy's name was Walter Gibson that wrote the Shadow books and radio plays and things. Mm-hmm. He put so much of himself into writing that and creating that series that he actually started seeing a physical manifestation of his character, the Shadow, a guy with a slouch hat and a black coat with a collar turned up and a red scarf over his face. He started seeing it in his apartment in New York.
Yep. Guests started seeing it too. It wasn't
he would have dinner guests over, and they're like, that's pretty cool. Who's the guy dressed up like the Shadow? What guy dressed up like the Shadow? This is.
So is that possible? I mean, have you heard of that one, James? Have you heard of that one?
I haven't heard the specific one about the Shadow, but a buddy of mine, David Ullman, lives down in Hollywood, and he lives next door to where the what do you call it? The Manson murders were, and his house is built on a rock that basically goes straight into the ground and out into the ocean, and he's got iron, like big iron posts stuck into this rock to hold the house when they built it, because of course they're in that shaky area of the world, and his place is haunted as heck. And he has people coming in there, and they come through and they do their paranormal tours. Well, he talks about ghosts all the time. So in the last 5 or 6, maybe almost 5, maybe 6, 7 years, he has more ghosts than he did when he first started up. Because everyone's talking about ghosts, and it's like there is a this is my police background again, but when you have a mall, it's not, the owner of the mall can say it's private property, but the doors are open and there is a presumption it's public. So you've actually opened your doors, and you can swear up and down it's private property, but you've, through just opening those doors, have invited everybody in. And all you have to do is start talking about something, and that being that's hanging out outside will perceive it's an invitation.
Right.
We don't have to say, Bob, you can come in at 3 o'clock today through the back door. You can just talk about, gee, I wonder if Bob's in the yard. And they could take that as an invitation to come in.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly right. That's a beautiful analogy. That was beautiful. And if you add, let me add this, if I may. If you add Ouija board and other things in that, it's the same thing. And I have people that know how to. I just had a reading with Barry Strom. I know you love Barry.
Yeah.
I love him. And Connie. Oh, gosh. And they do it right, and I have other people that do it right. But if you have one and and you start, and it's not the board, it's the intent.
Yep.
If you open the door, please protect yourself, whatever you believe in, whatever your inner, your higher self, whatever good you can put around you, whatever your personal belief is, put the protection out there. And then close the door, please, because I've had people that say, well, I do it all the time and nothing happens to me. Okay, what about your dad, who might have a lower vibrational, or we were talking about that earlier, and it's hitting him and you don't even know it? It's going to find a way, if it's out there, because you've opened that door, just like you said, and it's like opening your door and saying anybody and anybody can come in. What are the chances you're not going to get one bad one there? It happens.
Because these things are all over the place. If somebody could actually switch on and say, I want to see a ghost, walk out on your street, switch on, and, if you're on the East Coast, you've got right from Native Americans to every country around the world that showed up in New York on a boat.
Yes.
It's
and that's
hundreds
right
of thousands. And that energy's floating around.
Oh, gosh. Have you ever heard of moon cursors? I wonder if your listeners have heard of moon cursors. They can probably look at and throw kind of things. Well, they're all over, but we have them right out here because I'm right on the beach. And what they did was they moon cursors because they cursed the moon.
Steve.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, you're dying.
You're dying on the mic, man. But they would basically, they call them moon cursors because they cursed the moon because the moon gave light and they like dark nights. And what they would do is they would tie a lantern or something to a donkey's tail or whatever thing they had, and they would lure the ships in and wreck them on the rocks.
Oh.
They were basically land pirates.
Okay. Moon cursors?
You know what I'm saying? Yes.
That is actually, they were called wreckers. That is my family.
And wreckers.
On my grandmother's side in England, that's what they used to do. They would put out the fire on the cliff, and they'd light the fire on the next cliff down. And these ships would come in, and they'd wreck, and then the salvage was free to anybody to take. Because it came under, I can't remember that rule, that maritime rule. Once it's wrecked, it's here, take what you want. Yeah. My family actually did that.
You probably had nicer ones than we did, because the ones that hung out by us were a little bit more diabolical. What they would do is they would get the ships that were bringing over, because we were Ellis Island, we're on the way. So you've got all these poor people that saved up all their money, and they would tie, put it in the coins and stuff in the hems of their clothes, because that's all they had. They were immigrants coming over to start a new life, and their families and everything. And they would wreck these ships, and then the people would try to jump off the ships to save themselves, And if they got to the shore, which a lot of them didn't, depending on the size of the ship, you hit water. It's not like people think it is sometimes. Sometimes you don't make it. And the people that would come up to the shore, well, that's when the moon cursors would get them and hit them over the head and kill them and take all the money out of their clothes. So they once you got on the land, you think you made it, and then they would get you there. And now the things that happened to us is, being kids and teenagers and stuff, we always used to have bonfires on the beach, and you're chilling out on the blanket. It was like, let's just stay here because you had a little too much to drink or whatever, and you're sleeping on the beach. And we have multiple people saying, somebody turned me over, and they're looking at these ghosts and they're searching their clothes for change and the money.
Lovely.
And the beach is haunted by moon cursors and land pirates. And if I had known that, I wouldn't have slept on the beach as many times as I did when I was a teenager, growing up in the Jersey Shore. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. But, of course, my family would never have done that while they were out. Yeah, and I'm sure when they wrecked the ship, everybody was safe as it ran on the rocks in the tide,
nobody was
and smashed into the rocks. Yeah.
No animals, the people were hurt in the
in the taking of all the belongings off this ship.
Right.
We have a family photo. Well, it's actually just a negative. That was a photo taken back in the late 1800s and it's a silver plate negative of this really, really old lady. She's probably in her 90s with black hair, dark, almost black eyes. And my grandmother said she remembers her. And my grandmother would have been born in the 1880s.
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm still
right through your ears. But her, she remembers this lady when she was a kid. So this lady would have been back from like the turn of the 18th century, or 17th, 18th. But this was the last in the long line of people who, it was almost like a Spanish background, very dark, and this was the wreckers side of the family. They were a lovely bunch of coconuts on the east coast of England.
Well, you know,
northeast.
You forget about the history, and you were saying too about the open door. I'm kind of going back for a second.
Please.
In fact, I'm in a case right now. It's still ongoing, where you're saying. Then Steve said about turning on the light, and that might not be what people may not realize. That I was talking to somebody at the Para Unity today about it, because I got to meet some people. I went there to deliver. I do wire sculpture, and somebody bought something, and I said, look, I'm not going to ship it. I'm 45 minutes away. I'll bring it to you. And she happens to be a very famous psychic medium. I won't say her name, but she's a lovely person. And the thing about the light is sometimes when you get together, like your ability is one thing, and I believe that everybody is born with an intuition and everybody has an ability, and we kind of talk ourselves out of it, and some people just hone it, and exercise it, and that's the only difference. We're, not special. We're all just people trying to make our way and use our abilities. That's it, And if you're with someone else that has a light too, and the light's brighter, and sometimes that'll bring in more, more spirits, because like Steve said, it's like switching on a light. Well, I was helping this one girl. That's usually how I get involved in cases. I don't go out and look for them. They usually find me. And a friend of mine called me, and she says, Sysco, we kind of got in a spot. And I said, well, what is it? And if anybody's seen the movie, Sixth Sense, the little boy, wherever he went, he saw the dead, usually caught in their death state. They had not crossed, and they were what I call ghosts, spirits. They've crossed over in visitation or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they were trying to help this young girl. She was about 21 to deal with. She didn't know how to shut it off or turn it down or ground. Mm-hmm. And they had some abilities themselves, and they were very into Wicca and just lovely people, just very nature-bound and wonderful. And they had good intentions. And they said, well, just come over to our house, and we'll show you some things that you can do to help ground. And I went, okay, I know what the problem is. And she goes, yeah, it was awful. We didn't realize what was happening. And I said, okay, well, what happened was you called her in. She had no grounding. And you have a light, and she has a light, and the other lady has a light. And I said it was like a grand opening at a used car lot. All these lights are going off.
Lights.
And it's just drew in everybody,
My experience that it's not just with the dead either. Before I learned how to switch mine off or hide it, however you want to call it, I could walk through a hospital or a nursing home, and I could feel everybody in there trying to pull off me, subconsciously, almost like energy vampires or whatever. But until you learn to block that off, you can just totally deplete yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. And for somebody who doesn't know, and that's why I try to do, it's like I don't charge for this. I wouldn't dare. It's a gift, and I was taught as a Native American, a gift, you're given a gift, you give it back. I don't ask for donations. I don't do anything. That's me. If somebody else wants to do something different, that's them. They have every right to charge for something that they're making a living at. It's a personal thing, okay? But she came to me, and I said, okay, well, what's the problem? She said, well, I said, she probably couldn't get from her car to your front porch because everything was just drawn there. She said, that's exactly what happened. They made it to the street. Now, fortunately, if you can imagine, this is very much like a visitation at the, I guess a White House dinner where all the countries come in, because you've got this interpreter, she's got this talent. So she's like, basically, she's speaking in Russian, she's translating it from Russian to Spanish, she's translating, because they have to speak between each other. And this girl can see them, and they're all screaming at her for attention. They finally found somebody that can see them and hear them, and they're all talking at once, and she doesn't know how to stop it. Now, where I came in was, unfortunately, people think that somebody had to die right there, they had to die in the house, they had to do that. That's not true. They could just be drawn there because other spirits are there. They could be drawn by your light. It could have been a car accident down the road. It could have been something that happened on the land 100 years ago. That had nothing to do with that house.
Talked about that. She said there are things that are here, there are things that are sent here, and there are things that come here because they sense the other things that are here.
Yep. So and that's basically what I do. I'll go in and the ability I think that I've honed is I go in and I can speak to them. Look at me. Read my intent. I'm here to tell you the truth. Tell me what do you want to say? What do you want to say? Where are you at right now? Will you listen to me? This one guy died in a a motorcycle accident. They were rushing through the whole thing, and they unfortunately promised him that they would give his fiance a message. And I said, you can't do that. Please don't promise them things that you have no idea whether you can carry them out or not. You're just going to make it worse for them. Break it down. Do you know what year is this? What kind of clothes is he wearing? But he was very erratic and he was screaming. I said, just calm down. I'll help you. What had happened to this young gentleman, he had finally decided he was going to ask his girlfriend to marry him. She didn't know it. He went and bought the ring. He was so excited. He ran a stop sign and he got T-boned and died instantly. He didn't realize he was dead. He was standing by his body, and he watched either the EMTs or somebody helping, not anything against EMTs. This is back in the 1950s sometime. But somebody that was helping out of the accident took the ring.
Oh.
And he wasn't going anywhere until he found that ring. And that's what he was so angry about. But it took 3 times going back there to try to calm him down. And then I had to go get other people that could, you see what I mean? It takes a village. Sometimes it's like therapy. Yep. And I'm not a therapist. But you have to go back several times and keep talking.
And it's having that discernment to know, hey, this is, more than I'm capable of, too. That's
exactly.
Sometimes just admitting you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. But, fortunately, if there's people, that you've learned to trust over time, like with his motorcycle guy, it took, I don't know how many times, but it took at least 5 people working together in different states, hundreds of miles away from each other, tuning in on this guy just to get him to turn around and listen. You can go, forgive yourself. It's okay. And that you can't just do that in one trip in and say, okay, you have a ghost here, burn some sage, everything's cool. Well, it might be okay for them, but sage isn't, you don't do that once. That's a maintenance thing,
Yeah, right.
I had one guy tell me, well, they came in and they burned sage, and now the thing that was hanging out and talking to my kid, now he just stands outside and looks in the window. It didn't work. Well, yeah, it pushed him out. But he's outside, and he knows that kid can see him, so he wants help. It gets layer by layer by layer by layer, and none of us have all the answers, and it really bothers me because a week ago,
it saged a little bit, like, okay, it's gone, and
no,
then took
and
off.
that's not good.
No, it's not gone. Yeah,
that's like saying I washed my hands once and now they're clean forever.
Yeah, people will do that. They'll come in and sage and then think, okay, it's all gone. I'm out of here. And honestly, a lot of times these things will walk out the door, let you push all the high vibration smoke out. Once it's gone, they come back in the door. It's like
go back.
They're usually more riled up than before, too.
Yeah, and that happens too. I mean, it's not just a fix-all thing. And again, this is my opinion. I'm not an expert, but last week I work in a studio all day, so I'm able to listen to interviews and podcasts and pick out interviewers I like like Dave and James and people you've never heard of those guys, right?
No.
But, that are trying to get some information out there and going at it with an open mind. Like, let's figure this out a little bit. Come on now. We have all this information. Let's try. I heard a lady last week tell an audience of probably 100,000, maybe 1 million, who knows, that suicides never cross.
Shut the front door.
And I just fell where I was, and I said, please fix that, because you've got a mother who just lost a son who just lost all her hope.
Yeah.
And that's just not true. And that's irresponsible. And that's horrid.
It's probably religious-based.
Well, I don't know, but she had 30 years experience. She's highly talented. She's written 5 books, and she just said that and then didn't fix it. Now, it could be that she was nervous and she wasn't thinking about what she was saying, but, it's just, you can't put things, it's going back to what you said, James, and this, again, is just my thought. You'll very rarely ever hear me say, I know. I'll say, I think.
Okay.
Kind of maybe this could fit, but I know that that's not true. Because
it isn't.
It is not true.
Yeah, and believe it or not,
terrible.
Tired person, you've talked for 2 hours.
Oh.
And you covered Steve really well. We're going to have Steve back when he's healthy.
Yeah, have me back after I've had a few breathing treatments or something here. But I apologize.
Oh, no.
And your listeners for
we've all been like that.
In your ears and
Steve Stockton and Sysco Murdoch, thank you very much for coming by. And I'm going to try to make it down to that place outside of Portland or outside Oregon where the UFOs are going. It should be fun. Yeah. And for everybody out there listening tonight, keep an open mind.
Let's roll. And hey. Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing and they go, what are those voices? Look up for the mountain, because somebody hide, somebody better hide on through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. Dead or alive, we are out to get you, dead or alive. And forget yourself. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done, throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man that after now.
People. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Dave's not here!
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
This house is clean.